I've got an electric guitar instrument loaded in. And we're going to look at the next player mode that we get to with this icon, and that's called Strummer. Now, Strummer works in two modes, manual or auto, and we're going to look at auto in this video. Now, the Strummer mimics the strumming of guitar strings where the notes of a chord are played with a certain bit of distance between each string. And the strum has a direction, which we can determine whether the notes are played upward or downward based on these keys over here, which we're going to look at in a moment. And it's different than the arpeggiator. The Strummer triggers a whole strummed chord instead of individual notes the way the arpeggiator does. So we have the preset browser here, and this looks and works similar to the arpeggiators. We have presets that we can load there, and we can manage and save them there. And similarly, we have a clear button to clear out any patterns, a play button, which doubles as a record button. We'll look at that in a moment. And a latch function, which allows Strum to run without holding any keys. So when it's on, the incoming MIDI notes are automatically held until latch is turned off. So that's the little intro. Let's look at auto mode. So what this does is the notes on the keyboard all become selector buttons, kind of like a key switching instrument, but the notes choose what chord to play and what pattern to play instead of switching articulations like key switches do. So C2 to B2 determines which chord to play, and we define that in the chord set menu here. So for example, I'm going to assign C2. We can choose our root pitch and then the quality of chord. Maybe I want to make it a minor 7 chord in first position. And maybe I'll make the D a D7 chord in second position. So now let's turn the Strummer on by putting play mode on. And we can use C3 to C4, or to B3 technically, to determine which strumming pattern set to play. And the pattern set menu lets us assign the specific patterns to each key over here. And then these few notes manually play single strum chords with 3 different strumming directions. And we can alternate between the 3 using C4, C sharp 4, and D4. So for example, I'll select the A minor 7 chord there, and I can just hit the keys on my keyboard, of course. And then I'll hit the key to get one direction, another one, and third one. And let's switch to the D7. And then the E flat will stop and start the pattern from playing. And there's no patterns loaded in right now. So we're just getting straight eighth notes. And then we have E4 to B4, which selects the specific strings to play. So here we can play the individual strings based on the chord that's defined and selected in this lower range over here. So it lets us arpeggiate the selected chord and mix it in with the strums if we want. Those are the notes of the D7, and I'll switch now to the A minor 7. So we can mix and match the strumming and the individual notes. So let's load in a pattern over here. I'm going to click hold and we get a menu, and I'll just choose one. And that's loaded into C3, and we see a little play button here now. So I can now use that to trigger a pattern based on what note is selected in this lower octave over here. Let's try a different pattern, and of course we can load a whole palette of patterns in. So I can use the E flat over here to trigger this. And let's put another one in here just to show you how multiple patterns work. So we can load up a bank of different patterns and a bank of chords, and via these trigger notes, trigger them. And then this is an actual strum in 3 different directions, and then a stop and start here, and then the individual strings. Now let's empty out these pattern sets, and I'm going to clear this, and we can record our own patterns. If we click on this little drop-down triangle here, we'll get a record mode. And now I can trigger these strums or the individual strings to create my own pattern. Okay, and let's hit stop, and then we'll switch back to play mode. And now I can hit that chord and then trigger it with E flat. And then I can edit these the way we've seen steps edited in the other window in the arpeggiator. And we can, of course, add some in manually. And let's hear what this sounds like. So once we've created a custom pattern like this, we can, of course, then just save it to the menu if we want. And we can further edit these not only by creating different steps at different velocities, but we can change what the step triggers here in this menu. We have the 3 different types of strums based on these 3 keys. And then we also have the individual strings that we can have them trigger so we can create custom arpeggiating. And then for the steps that are chords, we can switch which position they are here. So again, let's hear this modification now with that E flat trigger key. So again, customize it however you want. I'm going to make it a bit more note heavy without as many chords. Let's hear that one now. And we can turn steps off to have rests if we want. So there you go with auto mode. I'm going to end off here. Next video, we'll look at manual mode.